Tim Stebbins with NBC Sports Chicago. I'm curious, when you were in negotiations with the Cubs, how did they kind of map out or envision the role you would have here with Yan Gomes alongside him also in the mix?
Oh, Tucker, I believe you're muted.
Oh, sorry about that. How about now?
Perfect.
Okay. But Tim, nice to meet you. For me, when I talked to David, the way that it sounded and the way that he explained it to me was Jan and I would basically be splitting time. It's just one of those things that I think personally that you need two catchers that you trust and believe in that could play every day if necessary. And I think we have that. I think Jan has obviously proven that he is an elite level everyday catcher in the big leagues, and I think I've done the same. And I can't wait to work with him. We've touched base a few times already since I've signed, and I'm thoroughly excited to get to know him and get to work with him for sure.
Tucker, Tony Andrecki here with Marquee Sports Network. You obviously played against the Cubs a lot, early in your career. What has always been your perception of the organization, the fan base, and then, playing at Wrigley Field for just in your career as a visitor and now coming there as a home member?
Yeah, for sure. I'll start with the first part of that. For me, when we played against the Cubs, no matter where I've been, it just seems like a situation in a field that I've felt like the organization does everything right. They treat the players the right way. The experience at the ballpark every day that I've been there has been electric. No matter how the team's playing, no matter how the weather is, day game, night game, it doesn't matter. Every day there is electric. It feels like I like to describe it like I described Fenway Park in a way where the stadium just feels alive, and it's hard to kind of put into words that feeling, but when you go there, it almost feels like you're playing a different element than you're playing when you go other places, just because there is so much history at the ballpark. The fans, no matter if it's a Wednesday matinee or Friday or Saturday, whatever the day of the week, it's an electric atmosphere, and it's just something that I think as a baseball player that has been able to play in the big leagues, and then you kind of get to choose where you go. Playing at Wrigley Field as a home, as having that as your home, or playing for the Cubs is kind of like a bucket list thing in terms of Major League Baseball players, at least in my opinion. And I'm super thankful to be able to call Wrigley Field home. It's, for lack of a better term, it's sucked to go play there as a visitor because it's been a hard place to play for quite some time. But I'm excited to call it home for sure.
Hey, Tucker, this is Ryan Herrera with CHGO. You mentioned obviously playing there a lot, and obviously you got familiar with the organization from an outside perspective, being with the Reds for so long. But as you were going through this process, was there any former Cubs or whoever that you kind of talked to about the organization itself and their experiences?
Yeah, I leaned on Wade Miley a lot. I know he was only there for a year last year, but Wade and I got pretty close with his time in Cincinnati, and I trust his opinion very much. I mean, he's 10, 11, 12-year big leaguer. He's played in multiple organizations, and he couldn't say enough good things about the Cubs and about the organization. And he told me, he said, me, man, it's like I've been quite a lot of places, and I played on different sides of the country for winners, for losers. And he said, it's hard for me to choose or pick a different organization that's done it better. So that, coupled with the proximity to home, I'm an Indiana guy, I'm a Midwest guy. I love the Midwest, and Chicago, we're like I said earlier, we're super familiar with it. I've played there a ton. My family loves the city. And so it just kind of became a perfect storm when it all kind of came together. And I'm going to say it a lot, but I'm super happy and thankful to be a Chicago Cub.
Tucker, this is Megan Montemiro with the Chicago Tribune. The Cubs have really emphasized run prevention with the additions they made this offseason with you, Dansby, Bellinger. What does that do for what you and catchers in general want to accomplish behind the plate with this pitching staff, knowing you guys are going to be having that sort of defense up the middle this year?
Yeah, I know. I think for me, it's not like the coolest, most highlight reel thing to see every day, but pitching and defense wins games. It is. I mean, I think when you can hold a team to less than you score, I mean, obviously you're going to win, so I think that there's should be, and it is a bias because that's the way I play the game, kind of defensive first mindset, things like that. I don't think enough people put an emphasis on run prevention and pitching and defense. And so for me, hearing how highly they value that was a big key in me in like making my antennas go up as a place that I wanted to play. But as far as an on the field standpoint, it allows you to be more aggressive with your pitchers. I think knowing that you have. I mean, we're going to have gold glovers all over the field. And that says something. I think it gives pitchers a lot of confidence to know they don't have to be super fine and pitch for the strikeout all the time. I mean, obviously you want to strike guys out there. I mean, that goes without saying, but when you have gold glovers up the middle, or guys that are elite defenders all over the field, it allows guys like Marcus Stroman to throw sinkers and say, good luck. Those allows Kyle Hendricks to do the same with his changeup to get weak ground balls or weak contact and know that guys are going to make plays behind them. And I think that over time that the best teams that win, I think it's a lot easier to sustain winning when you are able to pitch and play defense, because bats get hot, they get cold. It's just the reality of the game. And I think when you're able to consistently play good defense and pitch the ball well, I think you're going to win a lot of games.
Tucker, Andy Martinez from Marquee Sports Network. You mentioned your relationship with Wade Miley and the emphasis on defense and run prevention. But for you as the catcher, how important is the relationship building with pitchers so that you're on the same page, whether it's going into game planning to kind of help build that base foundation? And how has that process started with some of the pitchers on the Cubs roster?
Yeah, I mean, it's at the top of the list, really, to be honest with you. They have to trust us. I think that's where it starts. And I think kind of coupled with that is them knowing that we care about them, and we care about this stuff off the field. I think you build trust that way by genuinely showing somebody that you care about them. So I think it starts there, getting to know them as people and getting to know them and how they tick. Because I think for catchers, like part of our job is being a psychologist in a way, and I think what I mean by that is when I go to the mound, I'm most likely going to talk to Marcus Stroman or mention things to Marcus Stroman differently than I'm going to say it to Kyle Hendricks, and differently from Kyle Hendricks to Jameson Tyone. Like a bunch of guys, everybody ticks differently, and we have to know that. And that's in to my point, like we have to get to know those guys kind of from a personal level first. And then I think it just kind of just trickles down from there. I think the ultimate compliment that I can get from a pitcher is that they trust me. And I think there's so many things that go into that. They know that I'm prepared. They know that Jan and I are on the same page. And I talked with Jan about it, or I texted back and forth with him actually the night that we kind of agreed to terms. Was I want our guys on the mound to, outside of the gear we're wearing or what we look like, to not know who's back there. I think that's when guys become, and when pitching staffs become they reach the highest potential, because we're all on the same page. They trust us. They know that if they need to bounce a breaking ball with 2 strikes with the bases loaded and the game on the line, they have no problem doing that solely because they trust that it's going to get knocked down or that it's the right pitch at the right time. So it's at the top of the list, man. I could talk about it for forever, to be honest with you, like what all goes into it. We don't have enough time on the call, I don't think, to really kind of get into it and dissect it, but it's just getting to know those guys and stressing the level of importance of when the bullets start flying on March 30th that we've had all the conversations we need to have. They know that we're prepared. We know they're prepared, and you hit the ground running. So it's at the top of the list in terms of things that matter the most, in my opinion.
Tucker, Maddie Lee from the Sun Times. Talking with Wade, talking with Jan, and kind of looking back over the Cubs season last year, what has been your impression of the rotation, which was pretty young, with injuries and stuff last year, but then also adding Tyone and guys getting healthy and all that?
Yeah, for me, I think that I'm kind of unique in the way that I've dealt with, and I've been a part of young staffs. I've been a part of veteran pitching staffs. I've been a part of the mixes of both. And so I've seen young guys grow into big roles for teams. And I've seen veteran guys kind of continue on the track that they're on and become key cogs in rotations and in pitching staffs. And so, for me, my impressions are it's a great mix of both, with guys like Stroman and Tyone and Hendricks at the top in terms of veterans. And then you have the younger guys, the Justin Steeles, the guys out of the pen that got their feet wet last year. There's no experience like pitching at the major league level. You can throw as many innings, or from my perspective, get as many at bats or catch as many innings as you can in the minor leagues, even in AAA at the closest level to the big leagues. But when you get to the big leagues, it's just different, and it's hard to explain. But every weakness is amplified or is exposed 10 times over. Every strength, guys try to avoid 10 times more, just because it's all about winning. It's not about development anymore, really. I mean, it is. That's maybe a little hyperbole, but the development that you get at the big league level is kind of developing to win and developing to succeed, as opposed to in the minor leagues, kind of develop to try to get to the big leagues and then kind of take another step once you get there. So for the young guys, being able to get their feet wet, kind of learn what works at the big league level for them personally and what doesn't. And when they're going wrong, or when they feel a little bit off, can they get through games and innings when they don't feel good? Because I think that's a major hurdle for guys to pass or to get over. And then for the veteran guys, just kind of, like I said, keep for me, and my learning and understanding of them is to learn what they do well and what they want to see from a catcher, what they want to hear from a catcher, and just kind of trying to build on that. I when I was young, in my rookie year in the big leagues, I caught Johnny Cueto, Bronson Arroyo, Homer Bailey, Mike Lee, guys that had pitched in the big leagues for a while. And so for me, it was just kind of keep my mouth shut and watch, and just kind of follow their lead. But then a couple of years later, I was catching guys that were making their debuts and trying to help them kind of blossom into, and be a small part into them blossoming as big leaguers. And so for me personally, there's no cooler thing to see than a young guy come up and just do what he does and realize that, holy crap, like that, my good works in the major leagues. Like, I don't have to reinvent myself, or I don't have to be somebody different. I just have to execute what I do well. And there's no cooler thing to see for me. And so I look forward to that for our young guys. And then I also look forward to getting to know and learning from the veteran guys. And I think we're all going to learn from each other, myself included. And I can't wait.
Hey, Tucker, it's Jordan Bastion from MLB.com. After so many years in Cincinnati, where you kind of grow and learn a staff over a long course, and then last year with Detroit, what are your takeaways from that experience in Detroit that maybe you took into this offseason and can carry over to switching teams again with the Cubs?
Yeah, I for kind of as a blanket statement, I grew so much in Detroit. I think for me, I had a bad year. I'll be the first one to tell you, and I don't mind saying that. But I think when you're in spots where you have to kind of dig yourself out, you learn the most about yourself, and you learn like how to persevere through those situations. And for me, I hit rock bottom in terms of like my performance. At least I felt, and I took that into the offseason as motivation, and everybody's going to say that, I know that, and it's cliche as hell, but I've enjoyed my work more this offseason in looking forward to bouncing back. And so I guess I don't know if I answered it really, but for me, it was just learning how to kind of really get through a bad performing year, and learning where those like triggers and where those kind of like alarms in your head go when things start to go off. And so learning how to kind of reel that in a little bit faster than kind of digging too much in that. But I learned so much about me as a person, as a player in Detroit last year, and I'm super excited about what's to come.
Hey, Tucker, this is Jay Cohen with the Associated Press. I'd be interested in your thoughts on what you think it would be like playing for a former big league catcher in David Ross and his awareness of kind of everything you guys have to go through to play.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I've been a fan of David's. I've enjoyed talking to him when I have in the past when we've competed against the Cubs and against Rossi. I played against him when he was with Boston. Played against him when he was with the Cubs, and I've always really appreciated the way he goes about his business as a player and as a manager. And I think it takes not that players and people don't understand the catching position, because everybody does. They understand what we go through, and they understand the things that you have to deal with during a game. But I think there's just this little extra thing that of an extra layer or level of understanding when you've actually put the gear on and been back there in the highest of pressure situations and big situations in games. And that's no discredit to anybody that I've played for in the past at all. It isn't. It's just kind of the reality of the situation. When you've been back there and you've caught and you know what it's like to catch 4 out of 5. And the fourth one is a day game in Atlanta and 95 degrees and 130,000% humidity. You develop a different appreciation for it, I think. And again, that's nobody's fault, and that's no discredit to anybody I've played for. But I'm really looking forward to it. The conversations I've had with David so far have been awesome. And I'm really excited to get going.
Tucker, this is Patrick Mooney from The Athletic. In your conversations with David, did he explain kind of a vision for where the Cubs are going, like how fast this could happen, or put into context all these different moves the Cubs have made to get back towards a playoff level?
The way he described it, we didn't have a ton of conversation about that. I think that I've been around long enough to see and to realize when certain moves are made, you don't make certain moves unless the eye is to start trending towards winning. You know, I don't think you go out and you sign Dansby or go after a guy like Cody Bellinger if you're trying to continue a rebuild or you're getting ready to tear it down to the studs. I just don't think that's the case. And the way David put it to me was that the eyes are competing in the division. I think we all feel like the NL Central is a winnable division. I mean, it is just, I don't think that's news to anyone. I think the Cardinals are going to be good. The Brewers are going to be good. And it's obvious where the Reds and the Pirates are. And so I think that we're in a situation that the way that the team is being constructed in terms, I think we're going to hit, but it's centered around pitching and defense. I think that, to my earlier point, I think it sustains winning when the ebbs and the flows of the offensive side of baseball kind of happen during the season. If you can prevent runs, you're going to be in a lot of ball games. And in baseball, as in any other sport, one bounce one way or another can win or lose you a game. And if you're in games consistently because you're pitching and you're playing good defense, I think anything can happen. So the way that we talked was very positively about moving towards winning. And that was one of the things that drew me to Chicago, was to be playing meaningful baseball, obviously in the second half of the season and into September. I think that's any person or any player in my position or in the big leagues in general. That's all you can ask for.